love the channel and find it useful in becoming a happy retiree. Subscribe today. So good morning, welcome to Money Matters. The other really incredibly interesting story that I had the pleasure of learning about this week, I sat down with a cyber security expert, a financial cybersecurity expert. This was a gentleman who served in the FBI for 14 years, and then for the last, call it more than a decade, is heading up a large institution here in the United States that we'd all know their name, and their risk management department, their cyber financial security department. And I was able to sit down and talk through how hackers are trying to get into your investment accounts and then how to protect yourself with that. So there's a lot to cover today. We're talking Trump tax reform, and we're talking how to protect yourself from financial cybercrime that I think is just on everyone's mind. Ever since the Equifax breach, you're nervous about who has access to your information. What does that information mean for a bad guy to get into the most important accounts online that you have, and that's your financial accounts. So it's scary in the world that we live in the day and age of how much information is already leaked about all of us, and then the access to accounts. But there's an awful lot of protection out there. And if you look at some of the big custodians, most of them have really a very, very secure protection against any sort of fraud. So if something does happen and they don't catch it, and they've got teams of, let's call it dozens or hundreds of people watching to make sure that you don't lose money, much of that, or from what I can tell, all of that in most cases should be covered. This is something that has gotten worse and worse every single year since I've been doing Money Matters. And the easier life is technologically, the easier it is to send off a quick email to your banker, your financial advisor, to say, hey, yeah, send me some money. We don't need to even talk anymore. Just, hey, transfer some money over here. Well, the easier communication has gotten, the more, quote, efficient it's gotten, the easier it has been for fraudsters and criminals to intercept and figure out a way to steal money. And this is something that that is top of mind because of what happened with Equifax only a few short weeks ago. They've effectively come out and said, look, sorry guys, pretty much everything important that identifies you in the world, social security numbers, birthdays, address, you name it, it's out there now. So I had the opportunity to sit down with a former FBI agent, a gentleman who has in the thick of it when it comes to protecting against fraud. He was the chief of the FBI's Undercover and Sensitive Operations Unit in Washington, D.C. Oversaw most of the FBI's sensitive, complex cases that dealt with fraud. And now he's really at the top of the cyber industry and risk mitigation field. So that's the question that we are trying to answer here about how do you mitigate the risk with your financial or with your portfolios. So he tells this story of, and again, if you're named Yuri or Dimitri, I apologize up front. We're just using these names to tell a story of how fraud ends up happening around the world. So this is the story, I call it, of Yuri and Dimitri, and they're targeting you. And these are the criminal, Yuri, so let's go back and tell this story. Yuri is the criminal mastermind, and he employs a gentleman by the name of Dimitri. He is the hacker based in the United States, but Yuri is the mastermind, and he's not based in the United States. He's based in Lithuania or some other country, managing from afar. And Yuri controls and employs dozens of sophisticated hackers right here in the United States. Let's call them, those are the hackers that are just like Dimitri. Yuri's in Lithuania. Dimitri's in the United States. Dimitri's job is to target specific high net worth individuals. So if you think of, and what do? They effectively build an entire dossier on you, and they get to know you. And this is where it gets creepy and scary. Just like in a movie when the FBI targets an individual that's the leader of a crime or organized crime ring, so now the targets or the hackers target you. And the hacker will find you and they'll say, all right, how do we learn about you and your family? So they put a picture of you up on a board, just like you see in SVU, Law and Order, because they're going after you. So they start to learn about you, and they draw a picture of, oh, this is your spouse, and these are your kids, and these are the schools that your kids go to. And this is what you care about. You go to this church, and this is your alma mater, and these are the things that you do. These are your hobbies. And they build this entire profile on you. So if you think you're worried about your email being hacked, let me tell you something. They are way beyond that. They are way beyond hacking your email. They're way beyond understanding who you are. So once they understand who you are, they will then plan, and this is the key here, an unsuspecting piece of malware on your PC. They're going to infiltrate your own computer network by sending you some sort of email that looks like it's coming from one of the places that you trust. So it's going to come from your church, but not really from your church. It's coming from Dimitri. It might come from your alma mater, University of North Carolina. Hey, Wes, thanks so much for being part of the Alumni Association. Click on a link to see what all your money has done, the good work that you've done for our school. Well, I'll click the link. Boom, malware now on your PC. That's how it happens. So once you click that link, bam, the next time you log into Fidelity, Schwab, JP Morgan, Bank of America, the malware now scans your computer. And the next time you type in your username and your password, it records it. Then the crime syndicate will, at that point, know exactly who you are and how to access your accounts. This is real stuff. I'm not meant to scare you this morning. I'm just telling you the way the new world works. So then, because now at pretty much every financial institution on the planet, remember we talked about it, everything's easier. It's more convenient. Well, it's so convenient that you've got a couple accounts over at this brokerage firm. Let's call it Vanguard. You can just add another account. Oh, I have two. I have an individual account or a joint account with my wife. Boom, I want to open another one. You go on, how long does that take? It takes a couple minutes, right? Well, that's exactly what Yuri and Dimitri are going to do. They're going to open up a new account in your name that you don't even know about. And how in America, what's the easiest transfer from account to account? It's called same name to same name. That's what we call it in the industry. It's like, oh, well, if you've got an account, same social security number, same person, you could just move money between those two without talking to anybody. And then one day, they test this and say, wow, this works. We're able to draft money into this new account that, oh, by the way, you don't even know about. That's when money leaves. And that's how this whole racket works. And and as scary as that is, and I just outlined exactly how this fraud happens. Here's how you protect against it. And you've heard of some of these topics. So I'm going to tell you why they help. The first one you've heard already from me and from Clark Howard. You've got to freeze your credit. We know that. Well, not only does freezing your credit, and again, remember, never, ever, ever lose your PIN number. Otherwise, it becomes a real burden because your PIN number allows you to freeze and thaw your credit at will. But when someone else tries to open up a new mirrored account online, one thing you don't think about, and again, this is any firm, TD Ameritrade, Merrill Lynch, Schwab, Fidelity, they need to verify and check your credit before you do so. So as soon as you open up a new online account, that institution goes back to Equifax or TransUnion or Experian and says, hey, let's just check credit and make sure this is a real person. So freezing your credit not only stops people from borrowing money in your name, it prevents people from opening up a like account in your name. And that's what you've got to prevent. So no new accounts without you doing it means no anonymous same named account that would siphon money out. So this is called true name fraud, and that's what you have to avoid. Item number 2 that most people don't use, that I haven't heard about or haven't seen written about, that you need to start using: 2-factor authentication. Most firms will allow you to go beyond just username and password. They'll give you a little key fob that has a sequence number that changes every 7 seconds. And every single time you log into an account, you have to now also enter in this unique PIN code that gets regenerated every 7 seconds. It's called two-factor authentication, and that is something that most people don't use. But let me tell you something. Do you think Yuri and Dimitri are going to target everyone with two-factor authentication and frozen credit? Nope. They're in business too. So they're trying to find the lowest hanging fruit. And you are no longer low hanging fruit if you use two-factor authentication and you've frozen your accounts. Do you understand what I'm saying here? Is that as easy as it is for these folks to get to you, there are so many targets, they're only going to target the most vulnerable and those that aren't paying attention. So many of these items are easy to do and they make you difficult to get to, and they move on to the next mark. And that's what I want to have and make sure that you do. Hi, I'm Wes Moss, and thanks for taking a minute to hear about what's so different about my new book, You Can Retire Sooner Than You Think. So unlike other retirement books, this book will give you a step-by-step guide, whether you're in your 20s or 30s or 40s or 50s, to learn from what these successful and happy retirees did to get there. I hope you enjoy the book, but more importantly, I know that it'll help you retire sooner than you think.